Hey guys, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Destin Demarion back with some more bass fishing basics, bass fishing 101 tips and techniques. So today we're going to talk about probably my favorite cold water presentation. It's not just cold water, but it shines mostly when it's cold water, and that's the blade bait. It's something that I like probably more than almost any technique. It's something that I do a lot in the late fall when tournament season's kind of over, just for fun. So it's just something that I associate with just having fun and catching big fish. So how I like to fish it, we'll start with the setup. So I like to fish it on a high speed reel. This is a Revo, Abu Garcia Revo STX. This is a high gear ratio, so 7-to-1. And then I'm going to fish it on generally a 6'10" to a 7-foot medium or medium heavy rod, depending on what kind of rod company you use. It's not consistent necessarily on medium heavy, but this is an Abu Garcia Fantasista Premier. It's a 6'10" medium heavy, so this one would be good. And the reason I want to use a 7 or less is generally because I'm fishing it vertically. I don't want a long rod. I want something short because I'm making short little rips with the bait, so I can just be able to, I don't have to bring up as much line with a long rod as I do with a short rod. So when I set the hook, I can set it, get it in the fish's mouth quick and start winching them up out of the deep water. So I do like to throw it on fluorocarbon almost exclusively. Generally, I'm going to throw it on 12-pound. This is 12-pound Gamma Edge. This is what I use pretty much 100% of the time. I like the fluorocarbon because it's invisible in the water for the most part, and it's got less stretch than a mono. Not as little as a braid, but it's a lot less visible. So that's why I like using fluorocarbon. Let's get to a little bit of the rigging and talk a little bit more about the blade baits. So this is a blade bait. These specifically are the Fish Sense Binsky blade baits. This is what I use 90% of the time. I can't even remember the last time I haven't used one of these when I'm blade fishing. So these are just a few of the colors that you're going to use. This is a new color. This is a Gobi color. I just started using that one last year. It just came out and had some really good success on Lake Erie with that one. And this is a perch one, which is also going to be good in those situations too. We got a shad pattern. We got gold, which is an essential one, as well as silver. Silver and gold are probably your most universal colors around the country that are good blade bait colors. These are all 1/2 ounce. I use a 1/2 ounce most of the time, and the reason being, I like the rate of fall. I like that I can keep it on the bottom and control it. The only time I would go heavier would be if it's really windy. If I'm fishing extremely deep, I would go to a heavier one. But sometimes I'll even go to a 1/4 ounce if it's slack calm, something like that. Or if I'm fishing a little shallower water, sometimes a 1/4 ounce is a little bit better too. So what a blade bait does essentially is it falls, it shimmies down kind of like that, and when it hits the bottom, it's just going to kind of lay there. And when it lays there, sometimes the fish will just come up and eat it. That's when you're really lucky and you're living right. But most of the time, you're going to have to jig it a little bit. It's a vertical presentation mostly, but you can fish it other ways. But for the most part, I fish it vertically. So when it gets down to the bottom, I'm going to jig my rod tip just slightly. So it's going to come up like this. It's going to vibrate up, and then it's going to fall back down. And a lot of times, the bites will happen as you're jigging it. You'll go to jig it back up, and it'll just feel heavy. And the fish will be there, and you just kind of go to jig it and just kind of lean into them because it's hard to kind of make up for thinking that you're just jigging the blade, and then you got to kind of set the hook a little bit harder just to get it in the fish's mouth because you don't even realize you have a bite yet. But that one is really in a color that I'm really excited about, the Gobi color. I caught a lot of nice smallmouth there on Erie last year. But the Sexy Shad one's one I use a lot. That's pretty good for imitating almost any bait fish you're going to come across. Then the gold and the silver are obviously the staples as well. So if you see here, we've got the 4 holes, and this is a snap. This is going to be able to be opened, and you can put this on different lures, but you can put it also in the different holes, and you're going to get a different action by doing that. So the middle 2 holes, you're going to get that vertical vibration that you're normally going to expect out of a blade bait. So if you put it in the top hole, it's going to sit back a little bit. You're not going to have as distinguishable vibration, and sometimes you don't want necessarily as much. So sometimes doing that is going to be the best thing to do. If you're going to want to cast it and reel it back like it was like a lipless crankbait or a rattle trap, you put it in the back, and it's going to make the head sit down. So you can fish it, and it's going to go through the water like that. So it's going to run into stuff and grass, and you can rip it out like a rattle trap like you would. So that's another way to fish this bait. And with the snap, like I said, you can interchange this. So if you have this tied on, you can just take it off and attach a different one without having to retie as much, which is really nice part about the blade bait. So that's our gold one, our gold Binsky. And I'll show you, I'll tie it up on this rod too, just to show you. So let's close the snap. There we go. So like I said, I like to use a fluorocarbon line when I'm doing this. This is 12-pound Gamma Edge, and that's what I use pretty much all the time for throwing a blade bait. It lets the bait get down a little bit deeper than using a heavier line quicker, and it's strong enough to fight a big fish without breaking. So I'm going to tie the Palomar knot. So I got it doubled over. I'm going to do the overhand. Put it back underneath the bait. A little saliva. And we'll cinch that. Cinch it down. So there we go. There's our blade bait on the line. We got it in that middle slot. Now that we've learned about our blade baits and kind of what you want to do with them, let's talk a little bit more about how you're going to fish it. So with the blade bait, you're going to, like I said, you're going to vertically jig it. So a lot of times you're going to have to be in a boat or a kayak or something of that nature. And it excels when the fish are deep. They're kind of sluggish, they're real lethargic because it's a really tight wiggle vibration. It's something that for some reason trips them off when they're really unaggressive and you know, in that cold kind of funk time, but they're still feeding. It's just they take a little bit of coaxing. Sometimes this is the best thing to get them to bite. So I'm going to let that bait fall down on a slack line. I want to kind of keep a slight feel of it in case the fish eats it on the way down. Sometimes you feel it jump or something, so you close the bail and set it real quick. But you want to let it hit the bottom. Make sure your line hits the bottom. You can watch it, and then it'll just stop and it'll kind of go slack. That's how you know it's on the bottom. And then you're going to engage your spool by clicking over the reel. And then you're just going to kind of make sure your line's tight and just hop it like that. Let it go back down like on a semi-slack line. Follow it back down. Make sure you're not inhibiting the bait when it's going back down. Hop it up. Let it go back down. And you'll hop it up and you'll feel a little bit of tension. You just keep continuing that motion up. Set the hook and reel as fast as you can to get them out of that deep water. Hopefully keep that hook in them. But guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions about blade baits or anything you'd like me to cover in another video, feel free to comment them below. Feel free to share your own blade bait experiences, and look forward to doing the next one, and stay tuned for plenty more content.